Ladies and gentlemen, it
Hey, hey,
is
hey,
12
hey, hey,
time. What's
hey.
going on, ladies? Good evening. Good
How
evening,
are
everyone.
you guys?
Good evening.
Hey, we are here chilling like a villain. No,
Poly Pimp time. It's Poly Pimp time. The
it
pimps
is
are in the
holiday
building. We are here. Pimping ain't easy. You know what I'm saying?
time.
It's not easy. I'm still sending out texts and blasts and stuff to everybody so they could block me.
Well, some people don't want to hear about it at all if it's anything
Especially women.
different.
Especially women. All the women friends are prudes. They're like, oh my God, what are you talking about, darling? Well, all the guys are like, bring it. Bring it.
Because they might see the benefit for themselves until the table turns, though.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
yeah, good evening, guys. Thank you again. Well, those who weren't here last time, we had Polyamory and BDSM part one. And this evening, we are having part two since our audience asked for more. And last time, even though we were close to 2 hours, we still ran out of time to answer all the questions that you guys had. So tonight, we are back with more fun stuff, educational stuff, informational stuff. Um, so we are gonna let Dr. Maggie introduce herself for those who were not here last time.
Okay, good evening. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Maggie Bonet. I am a clinical sexologist, licensed professional counselor, as well as a nurse. And tonight I am here just to really provide some information and hopefully some safety tips regarding kink play, as well as how you navigate a little bit about how you navigate poly and kink play and BDSM.
Yes.
I do want to disclose that I am not an expert. I'm not an expert in poly, I should say, and I'm not an expert in BDSM. However, I do have a very strong passion, particularly because of my nursing background. I have a passion in wanting to make sure that if people are going to get involved in kink play, that they are doing it safely, because it's not just about, oh, you hear about it and you want to try it and then you find yourself getting into trouble. And tonight, I think because last time we talked a little bit more about a lot of things focusing on BDSM, we might keep it light. But particularly if you're talking about getting it heavy into BDSM, there's a whole lot to learn about it that we probably will not even get a chance to ever cover here. But I
Mm.
did want to make sure I have that disclosure that don't call me an expert. I said last time I do have a very high respect for the poly community, for the BDSM kink community. And so, because I am not an official member, I would never disrespect the community and attempt to even pretend that I know anything more than just what I'm bringing to you, which is fairly basic. So, thank you for having me back. And I hope it's going to be
Hey,
an amazing and fun conversation again regarding BDSM and kink.
cool. I want to just put some stuff down on the floor of your mind. I need everybody to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We need everyone who's listening to just go and follow us. Just look up the Poly Pimps on all of those platforms and please do a follow. We need more followers than just lurkers. I know you're lurking, but we need you to actually make a commitment. I know you guys are afraid of commitment, but I assure you, it's the best commitment you'll ever make. Also, I don't
And
know if you see on the bottom of the screen, we created a Poly Pimps Cash App because I know you beautiful people are so generous. We put a lot of effort into making this, and we want to grow our thing that we're trying to do here. We got some amazing activities that are going to be happening locally. So please feel free to drop a tip in the bucket. You know what I'm saying? And let it rain. That's all I gotta say.
Make it rain.
That part, yeah.
And so grab your drinks, guys, whatever beverage you want, some water or whatever else, adult beverages. Let's sit down and let Dr. Maggie, cheers, let Dr. Maggie drop the tea on us.
Okay. So, because we had a part one and the focus was on BDSM, for those who were not here, and even for those who were here, I would like to do a quick review on what BDSM is, what it stands for. So, overall, BDSM is a variety of exotic practices or role playing. The acronym BDSM is multifaceted.
Mhm.
So some of the letters actually have double duty. So
Okay.
BDSM is bondage and discipline, that's the B and D,
Mhm.
dominance and submission, which is the DNS, sadism and masochism, which is the SNM. Sadism and masochism used to be called sadomasochism, if you all might remember that word. I
Yes.
believe in the community they would prefer not to have that word, to utilize sadomasochism. So we prefer mostly, not we, in my understanding, it's preferred to be used as sadism and masochism.
Okay.
Um, so there's also something we talked briefly about last week, or the last time we met, was also, let's not forget the master and slave, which also can be part of the BDSM community. Um, so with bondage, bondage just involves a physical restraining of a partner with tools like ropes, handcuffs, etc., blindfolds. Discipline, particularly in BDSM and poly and a lot of these alternative lifestyle or plays, there are rules. There are rules. And so this in discipline, if you break the rules, somebody has to enforce the rules and also show you what the consequences are. So
Mm.
person who's into disciplining is the person who's going to discipline the rule breaker in a form of a physical punishment, which it would involve impact play like whipping or spanking, or psychological punishment like humiliation play, right? The D is for dominance, and so dominance, if there is so a person, so that also most likely would be the person who's also the disciplinarian. But the dominant person is the person who exercises control in a dominant, submissive relationship. Let's keep in mind most of BDSM is about power play. It's about giving over control to someone else, to your partner whom you trust. So this would be the person who exercised the control in the dominant submissive relationship. And typically they're called a dom. And for the submission, that would be the counterpart of dominance. So the submissive or subs is usually the person who consensually relinquish that control to the dominant partner. And again, remember the word consensually, willingly. People have brought up the whole thing about BDSM and all the pain and the things that they talk about and the control. We're not talking about control without consent. We're definitely talking about adults who have consensually agreed to this role play and this power exchange. So the sub would be the person who relinquished their control. Sadism, a sadist is somebody who enjoys inflicting pain or humiliation on others, and they get aroused by that. They get the joy of giving pain to someone else. So somebody has to receive that pain, and that would be your masochism. So the masochist is the willing partner. Again, the word willing is the willing partner who enjoys being on the receiving end of the pain. And I know we had a little bit of questions and talks about that, which we can touch base more a little bit later on why people do that. And so that's your BDSM, but also there's it's not like everything else, like not everything else, like a lot of things, it's not linear, it's not straightforward. So you don't have to be in one role, you can be in multiple roles. So that would be a switch. So a switch would be the person who might occasionally switch the role play. So one time they decide to be a dom, the next time they decide to be a sub. A lot of people tend to be switches where they can carry out both role play. So that would be what your BDSM stands for. And the other thing I really want to emphasize over and over again is the need for safety in BDSM or kink play. It's like literally it's non-negotiable. The BDSM non-negotiable is consent, and consent, agreeing to doing this play, to be engaging in these activities, as well as making sure you're maintaining safety physically and emotionally. So I don't want to repeat everything we did the last time. I'm happy to go a little bit further on, but I think you get the gist of it. And with that, we can move towards the next segment
Yeah.
or whatever else you all want to talk about.
Well, I know that. Thank you, Dr. Maggie. I know that Sky had a lot of questions last time, and she didn't get a
Oh,
chance to get
I
them
thought we were gonna.
answered.
Oh, some of them were answered actually while she was talking, to be
Okay.
honest. So I didn't even have an opportunity to really ask a lot of them, but you brought up a lot of stuff. But let's talk more about kink, because I think that's something I'm more familiar with.
Yeah.
And if you want to move into kink, the kinkiness of kinkstering, the
Okay.
kinktacular, the kinking and poly kink kink.
So
Let's get
basically,
kinky.
kink or kinky sex is an umbrella category that actually encompasses BDSM, and it describes a very, very wide range of diverse sexual practices that differ from conventional sexual interactions or what some call vanilla sex. And I took it for granted that people knew what we were talking about the last time we mentioned the word vanilla sex. So just to touch base on that, vanilla sex is your basic, um, not traditional sexual activities that most people are probably
Familiar with.
practicing. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're simply in a
Boring.
missionary position. We're
Yeah.
not going to say that because you are, if it's only going to be missionary. So vanilla sex most likely is basically people who are not open necessarily to exploring sex through other means. So, for example, incorporating bondage, incorporating plays like role playing, and when we think about people who are not vanilla and we think about BDSM, we think about people who are really rough. And I think somebody last time asked about rough sex, and there's almost always pain involved, but that's not the case. And in fact, my preference tonight was to also talk more about light BDSM or light kink play. So kink is really just it's so much. It is so broad and it's such a diverse community and practice that it's hard to briefly summarize. But
Right.
kinksters do tend to favor things like role play, costuming, um, personal power hierarchies, intense sensation, and just the joy of playing with their partners through a variety of different ways, like tools and, like I said earlier, just incorporating fun stuff during their sexual play.
So would you say that maybe regular couples or people who most of the time practice vanilla sex, those are the kind of things that they would probably look into every once in a while to spice up the activities in the bedroom, or like.
So what I've from the research, I was looking at a research. They talked about if you are at a dinner table and you have five people at the table, at least one out of the five people is into kink. We don't think about us being kink because I think when we talk about kink, BDSM, we think about people who are deviant. That word does not appeal to us. So we stay away from being labeled as kink or kinkster, even though we don't necessarily just do vanilla play. But some people who are more into vanilla sex typically are open to a little bit more.
A little
You
bit.
think about the kind of things that people. So the movie, and did I mention that the last time? If I did, I'm repeating myself. But 50 Shades of Grey. Oh my gosh, how many people watched that?
Millions.
Mm-hmm.
Millions of people. A lot of them were housewives. It tells you just how many people are at least curious about kink. And
Yes.
so we try to deny the fact that there's that part of us, but I don't want to say all of us, but a larger amount than we think have a desire at least to explore kink if they haven't already in some way or fashion. And and I'm going to give you a series of things that would be considered like kink play. And when you think about it, or when you hear about it, you might realize that you're probably a little bit more of a kinkster than you realize. So,
Let me get my pen. Let me get my pen so I can.
Take notes, audience.
Let me make a list real quick. You know what I'm saying? Because I need this. Ready?
so did that answer your question?
Yes. So,
So I have one. So
yeah,
someone
Dr.
said to
Maggie.
me that polyamory is a kind of kink. And I didn't really look at it at that, but maybe you can enlighten me if that's something they said, having multiple partners in itself is being kinky. Is that
So it's interesting. From what the research has shown is that not all polyamorous people are kinky. Just because you have the capacity to love and be loved by more than one partner, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are kinky. However, it does show that most of the time, people who are polyamorous, as well as the BDSM practitioners, because they are more like kink and BDSM in the sense that polyamorous people tend to be a little bit more open,
okay?
wouldn't you say? I mean, for you ladies who are pimps, poly pimps, polyamorous people tend to be more open to new experiences. They are more extroverted, and they also they're better at relationship communication because in all these arenas, I would prefer or communities, communication is tremendously important, right? So
Right.
from what I understand, and last time we spoke, Kai, you were like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that.
I
And
know.
Mitou was like, oh, Sky is vanilla. Although Sky is not quite vanilla, but just because you have multiple partners, you have the capacity, you have the heart to love multiple people, but you may not be open to being, feather play, to being,
I consider myself
sensation play.
vanilla with sprinkles.
There you go.
You
There
know
you
what I mean?
go.
Like, I'm not a banana split, but you know, you could sprinkle a little of those rainbow
Put
colors.
a little, yes, that's right. The ripple sprinkles on there.
Yeah,
And so
chocolate. Let's make it chocolate.
and so, yeah, not all poly people that I've met would consider themselves kink because they're not necessarily open to those experiences or open to a power play kind of thing. So,
I mean, so I think that even in regular relationships, like you say, a lot of people have a little kink in them without realizing it, because so many times, to spice it up, the couple plays like role play, you know,
yeah,
like maybe the wife gets a certain outfit or the husband gets a certain outfit, the plumber outfit, because apparently that, the pool boy outfit or something. Like people are always like trying to come up with great ideas to spice things up. So like I definitely believe that, but most of the time people won't think of it as a kink because it's like, oh no, I'm just doing this to spice up things. Well, it is a kink because you want to see your partner as somebody different than who you know. So
exactly. 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 And role playing, you're giving up power. So, for example, you have the teacher student, which is a
Yeah.
typical one, right? During
Yes.
that time, it's like the time you would be like, oh, I've been a bad girl, or I've been a
Yeah.
bad boy, spank me,
Right.
that kind of thing. So, yes, a lot of people are involved in role playing, which is a kink play. And they may not label it as such, but yes, it is a kink play. And so, since I'm already talking about spanking, erotic spanking, is one of your most common kinks out there. And
Right.
one of the reasons why that one is important to me, because it is common, we don't think of erotic spanking as something that might be dangerous in and of itself. It's like, what can go wrong with spanking?
Mm-hmm.
It's just spanking. But it's not. There is a right way to spank so that you're not hurting your partner. And so, if I can just go ahead and go into that, is that
Yes.
okay? Okay,
Absolutely.
great. So, we'll go ahead. One of the kink plays that is common that I think most of us like.
Okay.
I'll say most of us,
She's
right?
giggling. I'm like, what's going?
What are we? What are we
And
doing?
we're not always willing to admit is erotic spanking. What I like about erotic spanking is that it does not require any tools. It's just between you and your partner, right? It's fun, and the spanky, it can also release endorphins that causes this natural high. Um, Also, but when you are the person receiving it, you do want to ask yourself, what is it about spanking that I like? So do some self reflection. What do I like about spanking? Is it the physical interaction, or is it the idea of releasing power to someone else, of relinquishing power? Um, or is it both? But erotic spanking is very low maintenance, but there is definitely still a right way. That's one of the things that I find every guy, particularly, and I mean, because I'm talking about in terms of heterosexual relationship,
Mm-hmm.
mostly every guy feel like they know how to spank.
Right.
You do not always know how to spank. If I was to
There's a
ask
right
people
way and
about
a wrong way. Please
hand
tell the
positions,
people. Please
if I
tell
was to
them.
ask you about hand positions, would you know? Somebody put in there, every black man spanks.
That
Well, every black man spanks, but does every black man know how to
is
spank
thing. How to
properly?
do it.
Hmm.
So
Teach the
here are
people.
some examples of what you can do in
Teach
terms of
them.
spanking. And it's one, like I said, most people enjoy who are wanting to try kink. That's probably your first go-to. You want to start light first and foremost. Well, let me back up. First and foremost, you want to make sure it's consensual. Don't be with your lady or with your partner, whether it be male, female, or otherwise. Do not go with your partner and automatically start spanking them because you think they want to be spanked. You want to make sure that you first ask your partner, do you want to be spanked? How do you want to be spanked? And also establish safe words so that as you are increasing in intensity, especially if you're spanking in different positions where you're not necessarily seeing your partner's face, to be able to receive any kind of body language about the intensity, you want to have words that you're going to use, safe words that's going to say stop, or you can use red light, green light, yellow light, that kind of thing. So basically, say green light meaning increase in intensity, red light, stop, what the hell you doing? And yellow light might be like, okay, let's try a little bit, but well, keep it at that level, that kind of thing. So again, establish boundaries, establish safe words, establish safety. So now let's move on to literally some of the techniques. One of the techniques I had learned, I took an amazing spanking class
What?
with this guy that was fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Anyways,
What?
oh, he was amazing.
I want to take a spanking class.
There
Please.
are so many amazing conferences that come through Atlanta that are worth attending.
Oh, what is it called?
Um,
That sex conference they
Well,
have?
yeah, Sex Down South is coming up in September. Um, that's a really phenomenal one. I really enjoy Sex Down South. from their conception. They have grown. They've been around for years now, and they have continuously, they continue to keep adding, and they continue to just make it better and better to me each year. But yes, so one of the things that you do with regards to spanking, you want to keep your fingers close together. Think
Okay.
about and try it on yourself now on your leg, right? When your fingers are close together, it gives you more like a cupping, right?
Yes.
So when you spank the bottom, it's more like a cupping. When your fingers are apart, which is probably how most of our parents used to spank us, for those of us who got spanked,
Yeah.
they boom, they slap it. They have their hands open, their fingers open, and it stings. It gives you more of that sting. Now,
Yeah.
if you are into stinging, then maybe that's okay. But if you're not into stinging, try to keep your fingers together because it hurts less. You also want to make sure that you are hitting. Oh, and please do not wear. See, I have rings on. Please remove your jewelry,
Empty. Yes. Mhm.
especially if you have very heavy jewelry. And oh my gosh, it can be rather painful. It adds to it. Again,
Mhm.
as you grow into this, as you move into this, and you are in increasing intensity and you want to do something differently, you can negotiate other things. But for now, when you're starting, start light and just stay safe. The other thing too is be sure that you are spanking the fleshy part with an upwards motion. Okay, so
Nice.
use the fleshy part of the buttocks. Mm.
Like when you want to hear it say,
And they prefer to use the fleshy part in an upwards motion so that you're not, and try to avoid hitting the
Demonstration,
bone.
please.
Ah, a dungeon would be a perfect place for that because we do use that in the
Can
dungeon
we have a
often.
demo?
Well, we would have had to prepare for that. I wish I could, but literally, you want to use that hand in an upward position, preferred, close fingers, and avoid the sides and avoid the bony areas. There are a couple of reasons that you want to avoid certain parts of your body because you think about some internal organs that you don't want to be hitting hard, that you want to avoid. So please make sure that you're staying away from bones because that really is painful, and stay away from the side. That's really, really painful. The other
okay.
thing too is to vary the places that you're spanking. So if you're, don't just, I find some people can be very repetitive in whatever they do, whether it be oral sex, this, that, and they just hit one spot and then they just stay there. They just like
Right.
literally stay there and they wear it out, right?
It can become irritating.
Similar, exactly. Similarly with spanking, you would like it's you want to go ahead and spank in various areas of the butt, and be sure to rub the butt in between spanking,
Yeah.
just to also confirm, make sure, and check in with your partner. One of the things you will know, and that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of times spanking is much more preferred than flogging, is because one of the things about that is that with spanking, unlike flogging, and for flogging, it would be very similar that you stay away from certain parts of the body. But with spanking, you are able to feel the warmth of the body. So if you notice that your partner's butt is getting really hot, or you see that it's really red, and again, that's not a deterrence for some people, but
Mm.
those are times to check in. If depending on your complexion, the redness may not be any problem, but you
Mm.
want to check in with your partner, and you yourself, you may start feeling that your palm is rather hot.
Hot.
So
Yeah.
you're doing this and you're spanking, and your palm is getting hot. And so that's an indication maybe to check in with your partner because maybe you're doing this repetitive movement. If your palm is hot, chances are their butt is hot. And they may need to cool off. And what I mean by that is you stop, you rub it, and you check in with them. You make sure that it's okay. So yeah, that would be it. The other one. So from spanking, we go into flogging. which requires even more communication than the spanking, because you don't get the same feedback as you do, like I said, with your hand. The flogging, you can't tell, you can't feel the warmth of the body. So again, please be sure to communicate with your partner. Don't just be throwing your flogs just about anywhere. So
Exactly.
unlike the spanking, the flogging, we do in the butt, you do in the back. Some people enjoy the back. Most people enjoy the back and the buttocks. Sometimes the legs, but I find most of the time it's the buttocks and your back that they prefer. But especially if you're going to flog on the back, please be sure that that piece of the flogging does not go towards the face, because especially if you're on the upper back, avoid that when you use that flog, that it's not going on the head, it's not going aside on the face, because those little strings can go just about anywhere. So make
Right.
sure that you are aware of where you're flogging and that you're not just going crazy. And again, keep checking in with your partner. Intensity is something that you want to definitely communicate with. When you're spanking, at least you know how hard you're hitting, right? When you're
Hmm.
flogging, you're not always so sure. So, one of the things we encourage is to try the device on yourself first.
To see what
Try
it
it on
feels
your leg
like.
and see just how does it feel when you go like this. Some of us are heavy-handed and we don't realize that.
Right.
So, try it on your leg and see how it goes. Um, and then you can also then check in with your partner to see just how well they, how they want to do this. Um,
Right. You're back. Welcome back.
All
so
right.
yeah, so that would be it in terms of safety when it comes to flogging and spanking. Those are places to start in terms of light kink play. We want to talk about any questions about that before I even go any further.
So earlier you were about to tell us about this experience that you had at this conference. I want to hear about it. I want to hear all about it because that, relates to what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, there's just so there's just so much. I'm hearing a feedback here.
I think it's
Um,
Skai's end. Okay.
there's just so much. So, was that in Frolicon? I think it was at Frolicon. Frolicon just passed. I
What,
think it was in May. I didn't go this year, but I took a
what
class,
was it called?
a spanking. Pardon?
What was it called?
Oh, Frolicon, Frolicon. It's another
Frolicon.
conference that comes through. It's really, that one is much heavier than SDS, which is sets
Really?
down south. Yeah, Frolicon is a little bit much heavier. So it's not, yeah, it's pretty deep,
Okay.
but it's fascinating. You meet all kind of people there, all kind of play. And that, when you want to talk about BDSM, we're talking about very heavy stuff like fisting and all these classes that you're taking that are really heavy, pretty heavy stuff, but
Okay.
very fascinating nonetheless. So with the spanking class, I just thought it was really fascinating. Um, I always like to be at the very front. So, and this guy actually does this for a living. Believe it or not, there are people out there who will hire somebody to spank them properly, um, to use the paddle. If you go on, I actually looked into a lot of these when I was doing research when I was in school. Um, if you go online, you will find people who are always seeking for different things. Like they're looking for somebody who can use a paddle. Again, if you're going to use a paddle, and I'm going to talk about some kitchen item things that you can use so you don't have to go out and purchase things. But one of them is one that you can use like a paddle. Once again, always look for flashy areas, avoid the bony areas, and avoid the sides. But I know I'm walking around this experience. So yes, indeed.
You have the
I
moments.
was very, I think I was a, no, not think. I was fascinated and at the same time quite aroused by his technique. Oh my gosh, it was as if he was painting on a canvas. Oh my goodness. He had the rhythm. He had it was like, oh my gosh, his rhythm, his movement
What the
was
rhythm?
fascinating. It was just
Mhm.
fascinating. This guy just fascinated me. So later on, I ran into him in the dungeon, and I was like, you were just so amazing. I attended your class, and I was really fascinating. And I just wonder if maybe you could just enlighten me a little bit more by showing me what you were teaching, because
You're
speaking
naughty, naughty girl.
something
You
is
wanted
an
a personal
entirely different
demonstration. I need
thing.
to actually show me exactly what you meant.
Well, it helps my brain process it better. I mean, I'm a person who's visual. Sometimes I learn visually and I learn through experience. And so it helps to have the experience and not just what you see in the books or what you're writing down, but it does help to put it into practice, and it makes me understand it better. So yes, I got a little bit of a spanking from this amazing instructor.
Proper
Naughty
spanking
girl.
technique
It was
live on YouTube.
fabulous, fabulous,
On
fabulous. And
YouTube.
again, this is not from, it's not for those who are a bit shy. And I sometimes call myself shy, but I do find when you get into a dungeon, all of that goes away.
Yes.
All of that goes away. It doesn't really matter. It's not about the judgment is gone. So, yes, I had proper spanking so that I can go back and tell people
Teach
how
the
important it
people.
is.
That's awesome.
Hey, you
So right,
guys.
right about now, I would like for us to take a quick little break to say hello to everybody who's
Yeah,
been writing and just jumping
commenting.
on the live. I'm like, I can't. Okay, I was like, I can't move my thing.
So we
Um,
have J Fad says hey.
hey, J
Young Slick
Fan.
Jones, cheers. Peace. Good evening, Jock.
Hi.
Rockamoon says every black man spanks. Listening. Yeah, I posted the Sex Down South. I be posting notes for y'all. Sex Down South conference. Rockamoon is very excited about that. Um, yeah. Jock said, "What kind of sprinkles do you want, Sky? Chocolates." Um, the correct sound is an indication of proper spanking. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, that.
Some women prefer clitoris spanking. Don't
Oh,
say
I
that.
mean, oh my gosh, I wish people were able to call in. I'd be interested in terms of the
They can.
clitoris
They
spanking.
can. They can.
They,
Wait a
they
minute.
can.
I got
They're
the
just
link.
shy.
I got the link. So if you want to call in,
Explain what that is.
if you want to call in, meaning you don't have to have your picture on the screen. I just posted the link. Feel free to pop in. So,
Clitoris
um,
spanking.
Mhm.
Interesting.
let's see. It's a conference at a hotel. Perfect personal demonstration. Oh, what is
The
else?
conference is always at a hotel, but it doesn't mean, again, keep in mind, this is still a professional setting.
Mhm.
This is not a place where if you do go and play, you are on your own. But when it comes to the actual time for the conference, the people that you may see, so like in Frolicon, if they're using somebody for demonstration, these are people who have already agreed to being subjects, and they are doing this as a demonstration. They're not literally having sex for pleasure, although it may end up being pleasurable, don't get me wrong, but just
Right.
understand that when it comes to sex and sexuality, when you're talking about sex professionals, or sexuality professionals, however you want to say it, we're not there to actually have, be perform in the act of sex during training or during conferences. That's not legal. It's not, people are not in the business of having sex publicly. But if you are in the hotel setting and you do choose to have sex, um, you can certainly, by all means, people will, invite people to your room. That's entirely up to the individual. But within the confines of the public spaces of of the conference. People are not physically having sex. Now, that being said, when you are in a dungeon, you are involved in practicing kink play, um, but it's not, even when you're thinking about fisting, it is still, how do I put that? You're still, there's very few times will you actually be seeing penetrative sex. How's that? You will see a lot of demonstrations of different things people do, different plays in the dungeon. But again, I just want to keep it out there that this is not a place where you go and have an orgy or kind of stuff. So let's just
Right.
keep it.
It's
That's good to
professional.
know.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's educational.
Yes, it's
Also,
very much educational.
right.
Most of them are therapists. Most of them are professional people who are in sexuality. Do you have to dress like Comic Con to the sex conference? No, you do not. However, people do. I run into furries. I ran into this entire group that looks like Vikings, and they're all dressed like Vikings. And so you will encounter people in costumes. You will in all the conferences. I've been in conferences where people were furries. One guy was a
What is
dog
a
throughout
what
the
is a
most of the
furry?
conference. Pardon?
What's a furry?
Oh, that's when you are you take on the act of being an animal, a cat, a dog, and you actually are literally in that role. You are in that role. You are not at that moment. You are not a person.
Human. Got it.
Mhm.
You're taking the role of an animal.
Got it.
Frequently, the most commons are your dogs and cats and bunnies and stuff like that. But there are people who take on that role for an entire day, for a week. So they walk around in collars. They've been led by, a chain, and they sit at their master's legs on the floor throughout the conference. They're getting patted and so forth and so on.
Hmm.
So it's
Okay.
fascinating.
Interesting.
Yes.
The convo is delicious. Nice. Um, wise gas for research purposes only, of course. Um, what does it say? I can't see. Present.
Praise that.
All right. And so anyone who wants to, new ruse here. Peace. Um, anyone who wants to jump on and ask any questions or clarify anything, please feel free. You can come on audio or video. All right,
So,
moving right along. So I have a list that
okay.
you started, but I only got spanked. We only got to spanking.
We only got to spanking. We
So
talked about
can you
flogging.
quickly go through the list so I can just write it?
Absolutely. So we talk about flogging a little bit and how that differs from spanking. We talk about using a paddle just briefly as well. Again, keep in mind it's all about the safety, utilizing the fleshy parts of the body. I would never advise, whether it be particularly for paddling, using a paddle, that you use any other area other than maybe your buttocks and maybe the leg, because the leg has some fleshy parts, but avoid any other body parts, right? So, but the bottom line is to just go and explore for the sake of pleasure. See what other parts of your body, we keep talking about the clitoris and so forth, but there are so many other parts of your body that can get stimulated and excited by touch and different things that you can bring into the play. So what I had brought to you guys was a list of items, particularly kitchen items. I know I mentioned that last time, and I think
Mhm.
that's where somebody might have asked, gave example. So kitchen items, or just even thinking about having sex in the kitchen, most people don't. That in itself would be nice and kinky and exciting because you're using some other areas in the house, and you may never see your kitchen utensils in the same way ever again. So let,
Right.
let us start with
The blender.
so, I don't know. That would be for sound. What would you do? Is use the blender for, since you mentioned it?
I was just kidding.
Ah,
It might get a little
talking
bloody.
about the
Might
blender
get
now.
dangerous, but I was thinking.
Let's think about that. So similar, since you mentioned the blender, let's go straight to another one. where that would be, for example, your milk frother or your handheld items, right? So it's you may maybe it's not. I guess there are handheld blenders and so forth, right? So if you are using a handheld blender, but typically it's the milk frother, the small little milk frothers that you use for your
Mhm.
latte. So if you have that milk frother, the handheld one, remove the wand from it, and you can use that milk froth. The base of it has your vibrator. You use that as a vibrator, just like some people use toothbrushes, your electric toothbrush, right? So in the kitchen, you have your milk or your latte frother. Remove the wand because you don't want that little sharp thing around. And you
Mhm.
can actually use the base. Has, yeah, think about it, Sky. So you're like, hmm. So think about how the base is vibrating and you put that on your clitoris, it serves as a vibrator.
Ah, that's good
It
to
will
know.
stimulate the clitoris.
Bootleg vibrator. Got it.
Yeah. The first thing I want to say when we're talking about kitchen tools, though, is to make sure that you're looking for things that can be sterilized. For
Yeah.
example, things that are like silicone or glass or stainless steel, because you are still going to be cooking with these things. Some people may say that is disgusting, but hello, people, excuse me. No, I don't want to necessarily eat after you have just utilized it, right? But when we think about, oh my gosh, that's disgusting. I'm using this on somebody else's body parts, especially the clitoris or whatever. Our mouth are going into someone else's body parts and genitals, particularly. Our mouths are into a labia. Our mouths are on a clitoris. Our mouths are on a penis, and we don't have a problem with that. But then we think about using a utensil and feeling like it's disgusting to use that. Well, first of all, if you're thinking about is that either the device itself is disgusting because you use it for food, well, you're eating the food. Or if you're using it on your body part and then you're going to cook with it, sterilize it. But at the same time, these are body parts that you've put your mouth onto directly. So just let's get past that. And I do respect if you feel that this is not for you. I totally respect that. But that's one way to get past it, right? So a silicone spatula, we talked about using a paddle. A silicone spatula would be a really good device for impact play. So once again, keep in mind that that silicone spatula is is a plastic, is silicone. Well, it's plastic, and depending on how you use it, don't forget to not apply too much pressure or don't use it too hard, and check in with your partner and don't go in other areas. Even though it's not as heavy as a hand because it's light, still avoid the side and avoid bony areas. Someone put in their cake mixer, the handle of the cake mixer. Yes, that would be very similar to the latte frother or a hand blender, since you had mentioned Sky, the blender, the hand blender, that would be excellent. So those all those bases that are vibrating that normally will you know your
Exciting.
food. That's you can use that as your makeshift vibrator, right?
Got it.
A lot of people like nipple clips. The nipple clamps that you purchase, um, they tend to, they can, I mean, a real good nipple clamp has a clamp that you can adjust. You can tighten it, you can release it. However, if you're not into going into the stores to purchase things, use your chips, the chip clips.
Chip clips.
The chip clips, they
Nip
come in different
clips.
sizes, right? So you
Got it.
can use the chip clips as a nipple clamp. Just make
Nip
sure you're
chips.
testing it
Chip
on yourself.
clips.
What is it, Sky?
I'm sorry. Chip clips as nip clips.
There you go. So you use the chip clips as your nip clip. Exactly. And so, but be sure that you're testing it before you use it on your partner's nipple to make sure that it's not pinching too hard. Most of them tend to be rather loose, but there are some pretty tight ones as well. Nowadays, they're making them pretty tight. So you want to make sure that you know, it's not too much pressure or too much pinching for your partner. This one, I know. Well, let me just say it because let me just say it and then hear what y'all have to say about it. Particularly people with labias. We enjoy stimulation through the shower, right?
Yes.
So when you are in the kitchen, if you have a faucet, a kitchen faucet that has a detachable sprayer, have your partner sit on the kitchen sink with their legs open on either side of the sink and use the kitchen sprayer over their clitoral area, their genital area, and you allow that water stream to stimulate their body, to stimulate their genitals. It's also a really exciting thing to do. Seeing yourself on that kitchen sink, the position and all that is just now you don't have to just simply be on the kitchen sink to actually have sex, but you utilize the kitchen sink and then take the sprayer and use the sprayer as your, and especially for those of us who don't have a sprayer as in our shower, you don't have to go out and buy a shower with a sprayer. If you can handle climbing above that kitchen sink, there goes your sprayer there that stimulates the clitoris or the genitals.
She's
So,
giving you guys gold tonight. All right. Those people who
and that
don't
one I think may take
explore.
some people because you're like, how do you do that? Honestly, it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. It sounds harder than it is, but it's really not that hard. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. That it's not that
That's
hard. So
it. That sounds fun. Again, for people who don't, like she said, if you don't want to go to the store, there's plenty of stuff at home that you can use. You don't have to spend hundreds because sex toys can be expensive. So if
maybe.
but you have stuff at home, use them, and you have the space already. The kitchen sink. Everybody has a kitchen sink. Most people have a sprayer in their kitchen sink. Shower is preferable, but I mean, yeah, you guys better have your pen and paper ready to
I
just
got
write
it.
those notes. Yes.
Okay.
I see.
What about
Yes.
actual food items?
I'm
Cucumber.
so glad you mentioned that because that was one of the things. The cucumber for sure, the cucumber and squash were definitely on my list. So with that, you want to make sure that you are washing it out thoroughly and put a condom on that. Put
Why?
a condom on your
Say.
cucumber and your squash. Wash it thoroughly and put a condom on it before you insert it into your partner. That would be preferred.
I
Okay.
have a
Okay.
question
Yes.
or comment. I know a girl who was doing like cucumber cleanses, I guess, but vaginally, and
Hmm.
she would, peel the skin off the cucumber, and she's like, it's really good for your pH and
It
blah blah
is.
blah.
It is. So you think about you think about how we use cucumber facials. We
Yeah.
use cucumbers in various ways. Cucumber is incredibly cleansing. It's a water food. So it is very cleansing. If you are going to peel it and insert it inside of you after you peel it, that's perfect. The other thing with these devices or these food items that we are using, unlike dildos, so your cucumber would be your makeshift dildo, right? In fact, they call the cucumber the poor man's dildo. Um, so, because you never have to go and purchase a very expensive dildo. Excuse me. However, if you are going to use these items, one of the things you want to keep in mind again is safety. If you notice, most of your dildos back in the days, they were making dildos regular, without a base. Now, if you think about it, most dildos now have a base, unless they have another section, the little section that tickles the clitoris, right?
Yes.
Because that section there separate the dildo or is an extension, it's a lot harder for it to get lost in there and put it all at once. But when you're thinking about something like a cucumber, a peeled cucumber for that matter, that's already a little bit slippery, you want to make sure that you're not putting an item in there and lose it. And I'm not joking.
Oh
You
yeah, I've
don't want
heard
to have
stories.
items going in and they can't come out.
I've heard stories, at the ER and everything, like people surgeries happening all the time to remove items from people.
Right.
So,
Especially with anal sex, it's
hmm
even a little bit harder to do because
Okay.
once the sphincter closes and grasp it and close, because think about anal, the anus, how the sphincter opens, but it quickly can close and close tight.
hmm
If it closes tight around an item and it's already sucked up in there, that can be rather problematic.
yeah,
So it's great to use these items because you don't have to go out and it's fun, but you just make sure that you're using them very safely.
yeah,
Um, and yes, you use a lot of food items as part of your sensation play, as part of temperature play. So I did see somebody put in the watermelon, the cantaloupe, all of that are amazing. When you think about temperature play, we always think about ice, but one of your viewers, when they put in there the watermelon and the cantaloupe, the thing that came to mind, if you have them refrigerated and you have them iced up, that can also be utilized for temperature play to rub it against your lover's body and rub it on their on their nipples, rub it on the clitoris, whether it be even for males, like if you ladies or men put an ice cube on in your mouth and then you use your mouth while it's nice and cold to on your partner's genitals. But keep in mind the temperature that you can tolerate in your mouth is different from the temperature that your partner can tolerate on their genitals. So again, just always test things out before you go into them full force, full throttle. The genitals is a very, very sensitive area. If you are doing temperature play and you have it in your mouth and it doesn't feel really cold, but then you go in there and you put that on their on the vaginal area or their genitals, it's not going to be the same feeling. Tea, in order for you to have heat, you drink some tea and you have really nice heat in your mouth, and then you use that for temperature play to also enhance or increase sensation in the body. Something we don't even think about is blowing on somebody's body. When we talk about sensations, we talk about sensation play. Blowing on someone's body, the hair on our skin has very, small nerve endings as well. And so it always can feel really nice when you blow on someone's body. It feels nice. It also increases sensation. It stimulates sensation. So don't forget about blowing. And so that's another way sometimes you use the temperature, especially if it's cold and you use that and you blow on someone's skin very lightly and it brings that fresh, cold air. It increases the stimulation and it's just fun things to do with one another. So,
see,
um,
it's a lot of. I feel like it's a lot of safe things
a
that
lot of
people can do that they probably don't think about.
right, right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of safe things, a lot of fun things you can have at home that you can use to begin with light BDSM, right? You were going to ask a question, Sky?
Oh, I was just pulling up some of the comments.
Oh,
Like this one
yes.
I pulled up earlier. It says, I know a guy who liked to have his testicles stepped on by tall, dark skinned women with high heels. Isn't that kind of dangerous?
That is very serious impact play. Where they're stepping on, I don't know. In terms of the testicles, that's a very sensitive area. That's something that, again, keep in mind when it comes to impact play, people don't always understand why and how people do it. Some people find pleasure in it, regardless of how intense and how painful it is. There's a certain level of freedom, and some people even say there's a spiritual experience that takes them to a higher level to be able to surpass the intensity of a pain and tolerate it makes you feel powerful, makes you feel like you are transcending into a different level, into a different realm. And it may not be understandable to some of us, but for other people, it works and it's very empowering. As much as it sounds painful, it's very spiritual. Um, is that dangerous with a spike high heel? It sounds dangerous.
Sounds
However,
painful.
if this individual may have, because when you think, depending, so the scrotum, even as we get older in particular, I could see that happening because the glands that are in the scrotum, I think about, we've all, not all, but for those who have played with scrotum, right, it feels like one of these, the stress balls, right? And when you're playing with it, you can feel the glands roaming around. Now, some men have their scrotum is has a lot of skin.
Mhm.
So I can, I'm only thinking, because I don't know, I can only imagine if this person pulled the skin away from the gland there, the balls that you're feeling, you pull the skin away and have somebody step on the skin to get, that intense pleasure from, oh, intense pain that gives pleasure. It's also an exercise in trust because you have to fully trust that the person is going to stop. I mean, to step in the right place.
Yeah,
So
I'll do it.
all the
Oh, Sky. We have somebody who wants to join in, but the device is not connected.
They need
So
to
make
connect
sure
their
you're,
microphone
yeah,
before you can add them. So
okay.
they'll come out. Alrighty.
there's
I'm getting
something
all of
else
it.
in the kitchen that we don't think about. And again, so we talk about light play, which is, and we didn't talk about bondage yet, but when in continuing with the kitchen items, the oven mitt, although
Mhm.
that in itself is not like really like a handcuff and restrict you from moving your hands, but you can use the oven mitt has a form of bondage. And how do you do that? So it's like a pseudo handcuffs, right? So if you have an oven mitt on, you cannot really use your hands. It restricts you from using your hands. So if
Mhm.
you are open to being restricted, like you would have been with a handcuff, and you have an oven mitt on, you're not going to remove it, but your partner now can do whatever, and you can't do it back. You can't grab them, you can't stop, so you have some restrictions, and you're relinquishing control to your partner because you can't use your hands because you have that oven mitt on. So that's something else to consider in terms of soft bondage. If you're not going to get a handcuff, and if you are going to get a handcuff, please try to get the ones that are padded because if you don't know what you're doing and you're putting handcuffs on and you can restrict blood flow, you can cause injury to somebody by using those handcuffs, putting them too tightly, that's not going to be fun. So for starter, I would encourage using things like, and even when you think about using your ties or your silk scarves, consider how tight you're tying these things and that you're not restricting blood flow and causing injury. So all of these things may seem fun and they are simple and they may seem simple, but you have to know how to use them in the right way in order to prevent injuries.
So what about um oh gosh, my thought just dropped out of my head. Okay, it'll come back because it was right there. It'll come back.
All right.
So
So we're
I'm
gonna go
sorry.
through the rest of the comments.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, time's flying by. I don't know why I can't get to my
It says, Dr. Bonnet, that sounds like the good, like the
okay.
book of look what? Like the book God of Ruin, Legacy of God series? Is that a book or well, it sounds like it's a book.
Oh, I'm curious about that. Anybody
Right.
want to Google?
Yep, I'll do it. And then 1 in 4 newcomers experience an accident or injury in their first year of kink.
I
I
can see
believe that.
that. I can
So,
see that.
oh,
So
somebody
happy
asked,
that this
right?
viewer, I'm sorry, I was going to say so happy this viewer put that there because It is so important. Again, that's why we keep talking about safety, safety, safety.
Yes.
Even with the ice cubes, some people insert ice cubes into the vagina. The tissues around the vaginal walls are very, very sensitive, very thin. If and when not if when the ice cube begins to melt, it can have some sharp edges. You want to be careful about that. So there's just so much you have to think about when you want to talk about or you want to get involved in kink play. So thank you for that comment. Yes,
Safety all the time. Can you tell us about Shibari?
I am not as familiar with shibari.
Okay.
What is shibari?
I would like to know that.
I'm
Let
not
me.
sure. I want to say I've heard the term before, and I want to say it has to do with bondage, like rope bondage, if I'm not
Okay, okay.
mistaken.
Yes, I'm sorry. So roping, yes. Um,
Japanese bondage.
Okay.
so when that is to be left to experts.
Yeah.
Why do I say that? Because when we talk about rope, and I just called it roping, but thank you for the word. When we talk about using ropes, whether it be lightly, again, we're talking about restricting blood flow. We're talking about putting somebody in a position where, and I've seen roping. It's very intricate. It is, it's an art form in and of itself. I've seen people being roped and being suspended in it. It is amazing. But again, if you're putting ropes around somebody, and especially if you're gonna put them in positions where they are suspending, you're gonna do it somewhat tight. You want to be very, very careful about restricting blood flow with roping. So you got to be really careful with that. And again, what is it that your partner want? What are they going to get from it? And how skilled are you at that? Somebody mentioned waxing. Can you use grits? Now, back in the days,
Grits.
when I was first taught about waxing, right? I was like, so it's nowadays it's very sophisticated, but people may still be using the waxing. I recall Dr. Grenzik, one of my professors, the first thing he told us is get a $1 candle wax. I mean, a candle if you're going to wax. First of all, get that one from the dollar store. And why is that? The ones from the dollar store, apparently candles possess a little bit of metal in them, which is what keeps them burning long and have that amazing bright flicker. Your cheap candles that you get from the dollar store just have the wick in there. It doesn't really have a lot of it doesn't actually have any metal in it. So that was the first thing. Again, like I said, this is old school. Things have gotten very, very sophisticated. They sell them specifically for that. But if you're still using old school candles, please make sure you're getting your least expensive because it doesn't have metal in it that's going to burn. The other thing to remember about candles or when you're waxing is how is the level that you hold it. Why is that? Because the closer you are to the body, the sooner the wax is going to hit the body and it can cause some serious injuries. It can cause burning, right? But when you hold the candle a little bit higher away from the body, by the time it hits the body, it's not as hot, but it's still hot enough to enjoy and get pleasure from it, get the sensation of heat, but not so hot that it's going to burn the skin. So, to answer your question, viewer, I am not sure about hot grits. And maybe that's a thing you could do, but I'm trying to think about the hot grits. Does it cool enough? Does it provide enough time for it to cool
I don't
before it
think they
hits
were
the
being
body
serious, is
sufficiently
what
enough
I'm
for it not to
thinking.
burn it? Because grits is thick. Unlike the candle wax when it's burning, it's liquidish, right?
Right.
So and candles once you start pouring it, it starts to actually coagulate again. It forms into a wax again almost quickly once it cools off. I can't say the same. I'm trying to think about grits.
Yeah, I think grits is a no. Like we can all
So
agree on that.
I
Because
don't
by the
know.
time
So
it
what I would say,
cools
wait, before we can say it's a no, what I would say, viewer, is why not test it? Test
I
it
just want to
on
know if they're cheese grits, or regular grits. You know what I'm saying?
With sugar or salt?
I would say test the
What kind of
grits
grits are we having
on
here?
yourself, maybe on your palm because that tolerates a little bit better. Honestly, it's preferred not to. But I would say test it, find a way to test it to see when it hits the skin or when it hits the surface, how hot it is, because that's a thick thing and
And
I
that's
don't
my
know.
logic with
You'll
it too,
have to come
because
back and let them know whether or not the grits were.
well, my logic with it too is by the time it gets cooler enough to touch your skin to where it's not going to be uncomfortable, it's hard. It's not liquidy, even if it was a little bit liquidy before.
And even if it's hard, that's okay. It's all about the heat. And when it hits the body, you can eat it off of your partner, which is also
Okay.
fun. That
Okay.
is
Let's do
really
some
fun. So
grits.
when you talk about the food and stuff, it's really fun to eat food off of
Oh man.
Oh,
your partner's body. So
that's a whole culinary experience
I
now.
can see them talking
Okay, you
about
just
the
gave me
grits
some
and
ideas.
why, because you get it's twofold. You're getting the temperature play, and you also appealing to other
The
senses
edible.
like taste, as well. So yeah,
You
that
could
actually
probably do
sounds
this.
quite fun.
You could probably do that with like chocolate or like melt, like do like a fondue type of chocolate
Like
vibe, and
that, yes,
then you
yes,
can do like drizzle it and
yes, yes. Again, just making sure that the temperature is enough to stimulate the warmth and the sensation that you're looking to get out of it, but at the same time that at what temperature. Unlike candles, if you go higher, by the time it hits, I don't know about um, the melted chocolate from the fondue. That's something to think about. Now I'm going to have to play around with some fondue. I
So
actually am. I think that one will be really, really fun, Sky.
I
Let's see
want
how
to
long it takes. Yeah.
I like doing all the food stuff, like the whipped cream. I mean, everybody knows about whipped cream and stuff like that, but there's like so much that you can do. I definitely like exploring. But on the same note, on a different note, actually, I would like for us to shift it to a different kind of kink. I mean, because I mean, there's so many. We would never be done tonight if we were to go into all of them, but maybe in closing, we could talk about a little bit. We probably can only touch a little bit of voyeurism and
Cuckolding, exhibitionism.
exhibitionist. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes. So the first thing about voyeurism, it's you get so there is voyeurism, and because I'm a therapist, I'm going to go there. There's a difference between voyeurism and voyeuristic activities that are illegal. So where people are getting turned on watching people undress, or in an intimate way, and they get turned on, and the other individual is unaware. That would not be voyeurism in terms of kink play. So the
No
part we're talking
difference.
about is to make sure that this is something that your partner is aware of, that you're watching them. So in terms of voyeurism, basically it's like watching someone being involved in an intimate kind of way and being turned on by watching the individual engage in it doesn't always have to be in a sexual activity. It could be that your partner is getting undressed and it turns you on and you just like to watch. It could also be that you like to watch other people having sex.
Hmm.
It doesn't always have to be where it's your partner. It could be other people that you get turned on by watching other people having sex. Sometimes people put voyeurism and cuckolding in the same place. So I want to just talk a little bit about cuckolding, although that's not what you talked about. But with cuckolding, it's where the partner gets pleasure from their partner being intimate with another person. So it's very specific.
While
Uh,
they're in the room.
It could be while they're in the room. It
Okay.
could be that the partner has videotaped it. It could be the thought of it. It could be that I am choosing this guy and I can only imagine now, or this woman, and now I'm envisioning um, that. Or sometimes I've heard people say that they have a camera. Again, consent, consent, consent. You're not putting a camera in the room and spying on your partner. Unless you're doing a role play and you're pretending that's what you're doing, that you're spying on her and now you caught her and whatever, and you're watching her having sex or him having sex with another partner, you could role play that. That would be fun. But the person needs to know that there's a camera in the room. So it is typically you're watching your partner having sex with someone else. Yes.
I've
Um,
heard that cuck holding holds a connotation of humiliation as well for the partner watching.
yes, exactly. It does. It can hold that connotation because now you have this person who's going to someone else because you're not enough, because you're not, you're just not
Small.
satisfying her enough. And yes, and sometimes during their play, they can literally verbally be humiliating this individual. I've had clients who are into cock holding and caging at the same time. So during the cock holding, he's also has a device over his penis, his genitals, so that
Right.
he cannot even access it to masturbate. So that makes it even twice as bad. You can be doing so. That's all part of the humiliation. So you can be in part of cuck holding. You can have the person restrained, the partner that is. So they're restrained. They can't touch themselves. They can't do anything, and they just have to watch and they can't satisfy themselves while watching. So there are a variety of ways that they can do
That's
this.
interesting. I never really knew that part of it. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So
You
it
see,
does have that part of it, but with the voyeurism is the interest or practice of actually watching other people engage in intimate behaviors. So if you have a voyeur, then you would also need an exhibitionist. So the exhibitionist is the person who takes pleasure in knowing that somebody is watching them while they are engaged in a sexual act or in a sensual act. So they take pleasure in that, like to know that somebody's watching me, somebody makes me feel like, wow, I'm a goddess.
Yes.
And so the more you know that you're being watched, the more intensifying that your sexual pleasure can be, the more intense the sensual feel is because you know you're being watched. And that too is an experience in and of itself. It's
It's
quite
amazing.
it's quite something.
so Karaka Moon says, I hear once you start BDSM, you can't go back. It's like drugs. You can't go downward in stimulation. And then a Florida sheriff was fired because he was reporting men having sex with his wife.
So was he recording them without consent?
Most likely, it sounds like it. I don't know.
Probably.
Again, you are recording people, and that's why I started off with that. You cannot go around recording people and without their consent. Maybe your wife knew, even if the wife knew, because sometimes the couple is aware. But then, if these men that she's bringing in
Are
for
not
your
aware.
pleasure, for the two of you to be pleasured, because you like to watch and she likes to be watched, and you bring these men in and they are unaware, that's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
A
So,
lot of
in terms of what the person had asked about not being able to go back, there is that possibility. There is that possibility. Just like when you are so accustomed to using a vibrator, and I'm not saying you can never go back, but I have found some clients who have used vibrators so much with such high intensity, in particular, like the vibrator they bring it at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
They have used vibrators so much that they are now looking for a partner to replicate that intensity with that the vibrator gives them,
And it will
and
never.
that's never going to happen. So they have difficulty achieving orgasm or reaching a climax when they're not getting that level of intensity, which they can never get with a partner. So, is it possible that with BDSM, depending on what kind of play, what kind of power play that you are engaged in, it's possible. I can't say that's a definite. I can't say everybody who gets in there don't go back. I personally have played around with a few things, and I can't say, oh my gosh, I have to have it. I
Right.
have to have this in order for me to find sexual pleasure. No. So it depends.
Okay. The next one is it's an illusion in a state of mind. In a state of mind, I would guess. Yeah. Probably. Yeah. It's the I think it was that comment was put on during the cuckolding, I think.
It's
Uh,
possible. Yeah. An illusion, not so much an illusion because the act is actually taking place.
right. I forgot which part we were at during that time because I
Mhm.
remember seeing the comment pop up. So
Yeah.
I think it was the humiliation part kind of thing. But I love to watch and be seen. Yes, Jacques. Same here. Same here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So just like
definitely,
anything else, you can switch. You're not
yeah,
always going to be a voyeur and you're not always going to be an exhibitionist. You can do both. You can enjoy watching and enjoy being watched. So yeah, and
yeah.
both are
That's why
possible.
I've always considered myself a switch. Because today I may want to dominate, and tomorrow I'm just a cute little girl. And same thing. Watch, be watched. It all comes with its thing.
Pardon me, I joined a bit late. You're so well versed. Are you a sexologist?
I
Dr.
gather that word is for me. Thank you. Yeah,
Dr.
I
Maggie.
am. I do have a doctorate in clinical sexology. Yes.
Yes.
Yay! We see
Thank
we bring in professionals in here, y'all. Like
you.
keep
Yes.
it sexy, you know what I mean?
And
So
thank you for the
and
compliment as well.
So
absolutely.
I think it would be nice if somebody would share just a quick experience before we leave for tonight. Don't you guys think it would be fun to hear our
Wow.
audience a little kink, like whatever it may be? It doesn't have to be anything out of the ordinary, but I don't want
Also,
to say too crazy because nothing is crazy.
people are shy. If you are into kink, light kink, or what are the levels here?
It's all kink play, really. It's just a
Okay.
matter
If
of
you're
what.
into kink play, put a 1 in the comments.
So I'm gonna share a story because I have lots of stories to share apparently. So
Awesome.
when I was in my early 20s, I was still in Haiti, actually late teens, early 20s, um, actually early 20s. Uh, I had a boyfriend, and sometimes we would just take a shower together. Maggie, I don't know if you remember, we shower outside. Well, Sky,
Outside.
that kind of practice as well because it's from the Caribbean. We shower outside. Well, our house was a one-level house, and right next to us, literally, it's connected to our house, is a two-story house. And sometimes we'd be playing in there when we go take a shower because the top part is not covered. And soon enough, we realize somebody's always watching. Because we usually take the shower around the same time. Because we would see a pair of eyes just looking down. We are being watched. Let's make sure we put on a show. So it was pretty much like a show every, like, we had an appointment, a set appointment every around 3 o'clock or so in the afternoon. We'd go take a shower and put on a show, and that person was always there, and I absolutely loved it.
So you were an exhibitionist at that time.
Absolutely. Hey, this is
Love
what you
it.
get. We knew exactly who it was, and it was, oh my God, it was an adult too. Watching, he was having the time of his life.
Wow. So,
Lovely.
how do you practice your work, Dr. Maggie? maybe this is a good time to like tell people how they can find
I
you
believe you.
How do I
and
practice? I do have a private practice
mhm.
where I see people one on one. I can do either
How do they
virtual
reach you?
or in person. You can reach me on www.bonnetcounseling.com.
BONNET
ET
COUN.
counseling.
Okay.
So BonnetCounseling.com. You can look for me on Psychology Today. Look for Marguerite Bonnet. Um, but through Bonnet Counseling, you'll be able to reach me. Call my office. My office manager gets you set up.
Awesome. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Before we go, well, it's been a great two-part conversation. And like I
Yes.
said, we have not even really touched uh this is like the iceberg, like the tip of the iceberg. Um, so I am gonna go on a limb and say this will not be Dr.
The last.
Maggie's last appearance on the Poly Pimps, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Thank
She'll
you.
be
Thank
back
you.
with more tea for you guys and more gold with
Absolutely.
the everyday stuff that we could use for kink play and safety as well. I hope everybody has been enjoying the conversation.
Absolutely.
Can we answer this question?
Yep. Uh-huh. How important is it to have calming activity afterwards? What are some calming activity techniques?
That was very, very good. Thank you. We talked a little bit about that last time because we were talking about BDSM, but it's also applicable to kink play. When you are done
What do
with
you call that in that world? After.
aftercare, same thing. So for your aftercare, some examples of aftercare. So how important it is, extremely important. What do you do for aftercare? We think about, stroking the person, but it could also include cuddling. It could be something where you ask your partner if they need a glass of water, you go get them a glass of water. It could be something where you put a blanket over them, particularly if they've been flogged. For those who are into heavy impact play, the person is shivering because they've just gotten really well whooped and stuff. So now you want to make sure that you're soothing them, you're giving them something warm, or even after regular sex. You want to incorporate some after play. It could be some talking that you are communicating with the individual, that you're talking, you're soothing them, that you guys are connecting, however the person chooses to be connected. So thank you for that. But I think when we think of afterplay, one of the most, or aftercare, the most common is usually like the cuddling. You cuddle the person, you make them feel warm and safe, which is really what it's all about. You just want to make sure that your partner knows that they're going to be cared for. You want to make sure that your partner feels safe so they can continue to play with you, and that they're in a good place after you've had sex or after you've had some play, some kink play.
I
Thank you
have a
for
question.
that.
You hear BDSM a lot and then you hear kink. How are they related?
They're very much so related because, like I said earlier, kink is like an umbrella category that encompasses BDSM.
So it's
So,
kind of like A&M, well, non-monogamy, the big umbrella, and then you have
Yeah.
all the other stuff underneath.
right,
So
right,
kink is kind of like that.
right,
Okay.
right, pretty much, pretty
Okay.
much.
So when you were talking about voyeurs, I was thinking of swingers because there's a lot of swingers that are actually voyeurs too.
Yeah, yeah,
So that would fall under kink, right? Is
yeah, yeah.
swinging or the voyeurism part or all of it?
Well, I think swingers is a label for those people, for a certain subgroup of people under the non-monogamous relationship types. Um, uh, I think we touch a little bit about swingers. The swingers that I have met, that I've talked to and interacted with. And again, it doesn't even mean that it would be. It's just like they said all polyamorous people are kinky because they have multiple partners, right? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean all swingers are quote unquote kinky. Are they more open to kink play? Most likely. But does that mean because I have multiple partner or my partner is willing to share me with someone else and we're switching, does that mean I want them to blindfold me? Does that mean I want to be spanked? Does that mean I want to be flogged? Does that mean I want to get involved in temperature play? Not necessarily. I may just want flat out sex. You know what I mean? So I can't say, I don't want to generalize. I don't think it's fair to generalize for anyone. Um, However, they're most likely to be open to kink play.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't say they all are into kink play. Does that make
Got it.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
Most
Yep.
likely, most BDSM, most people who are involved in BDSM are kinksters. But I
Gotcha.
can't say swingers are all kinksters.
Necessarily gangsters. Yeah.
Most of them maybe, just like all polyamorous people are not kinksters necessarily. Does that
Got
make
it.
sense?
Yep.
And you
Yep.
guys would know better than I do, so correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think it, yeah. I think it makes sense.
Okay.
So thank you guys. We got a couple apples in the Cash App. We appreciate that. So for folks who are generous, then feel free to Cash App the Poly Pimps for this great information that Dr. Maggie has blessed you with. And we already
You
have
guys
a show.
need to stay tuned as well for the next Juicy Bash that's coming up
Oh
soon, and we'll
yeah,
keep you
we
guys
got it.
updated.
We got it down now. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe to everything: Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Facebook.
And send it to your friends. You know what I'm saying? This is information, this is education. So, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. This was nice and long and full, and I took notes.
We like it like that, nice and full and long. Oh,
I think I can definitely take vanilla off my name.
Sky is determined to no longer be labeled vanilla, and I
yes.
love
I,
it. Love it.
Now
compared
we got
to
the sprinkle.
compared to her.
Well,
So
over there.
right. Compared to both of y'all.
It's hard.
um
You gotta live. Life is
they want a
short.
part 3. That is so cool.
Oh
Says
wow!
need a part 3.
All right.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We have great show on Prince's birthday week.
Hmm.
Insatiable.
Oh,
Yes.
insatiable. Okay.
Thank you, Fina. So,
Thank
all
you
right,
guys
y'all.
so much for tuning in. You have a good night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, and we'll let you know if it'll be part 3. Have a
Okay.
good night.
No pressure. No pressure.
No
Right.
pressure. Good night.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you to your viewers for their participation and for welcoming me into your platform. It was lovely. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate your viewers as well. Thanks for
Thank
all the
you.
love.
Awesome.
Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Have a great night.